What should
This pain of coming back to life, I feel everything, everything. When I open my eyes, your face, I'll never forget. Your horror, my pain, I'm alive, living again. I feel every stitch and every scar. Father, what's my purpose? Abandoned, left for dead, a monster. Why have you forsaken me? Accept me as I am. God, do you feel like a god, creating without thinking, no pros, no cons? You let me walk, you let me see, you let me feel. I found her, but she did not know me. I reached for her, but she recoiled in horror. I wanted to beg anything for her love. The look on her face, I want out of this place. Father, what's my purpose? Abandoned, left for dead, a monster. Why have you forsaken me? Accept me as I am. It doesn't matter, it can't matter no more. I'm incomplete, I'm missing me. The world is darker than I remember. I wanna love her, but this heart is not mine. I wanna touch her, but these hands are not mine. I wanna tell her I love her, but this voice is not mine. Looking into her eyes, I saw how love died. Now that's where her body lies. Father, what's my purpose? Abandoned, left for dead, a monster. Why have you forsaken me? Accept me as I am. Revenge shall be mine, I'll catch you in time. You gave me the pain of coming back to life. I want you to see me, look what you've done, what you've done. A man no more from a madman's hands. I walk alone, no part of me is home. Place me back under the stone. Father, what's my purpose? Abandoned, left for dead, a monster. Why have you forsaken me? Accept me as I am. As I am. What's my purpose? shadow of death. A good shepherd is he, the one that guides me. Though in darkness I find myself alone, I lack nothing, for my God above me His throne. All His love He has shown. Though in darkness I walk alone, in a world so cold, this is my life above me His throne. The silent storm of chaos follows close behind, but in Him comfort I find. I find still waters flow gently, reminding me in Him I find safety. Though in darkness I walk alone, in a world so cold, this is my life above me His throne. I don't walk alone no matter where I go, on the highest mountain or the back alleyways. The Lord with me He stays. He restores my soul, renewed, unbroken, His righteousness spoken. Though in darkness I walk alone, in a world so cold, this is my life above me His throne. Guidance, protection, this is His love's reflection, guarding me from the opposition. The Lord's feet show me a righteous direction. Though in darkness I walk alone, in a world so cold, this is my life above me His throne. Overflowing blessings, anointed with oil, the Lord protects my soul from eternal turmoil. My cup overflows, His mercy He shows, abundance He sows. Though in darkness I walk alone, in a world so cold, this is my life above me His throne. I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever, no matter where. For the Lord's goodness and mercy are in me, a faithful love entirely. Though in darkness I walk alone, in a world so cold, this is my life above me His
right, folks. Welcome to Paranormal Roundtable. Here we are again. We made a video earlier, but it ended up having to be a message that I had to get out because, there's just people out there who do things. All right, let's put it that way. If you want to hear about it, go listen to the show that we just killed the stream on. We had like almost 400 people. But I felt like it was important because I don't know. Mm-mm. Thank you for that, Rebecca. She said we should all hit that like button. Show them we love them. That's awesome. Please do. Please like and subscribe. And I promise not every show is going to be like that. It's just that I had to say something because these people were accusing me, and I just really take so much of this nonsense. Just letting some people join. Hmm. Uh, hmm. They're good, Randy. Thank you for asking. They're little border collies. They're still pups, They're I think they're like what 6.5 months old or something now. They're still young. Here at PRT, we would like for this to be a place of positivity and understanding where people can exchange information and stories, and it could be a good thing. But we don't want all this mess. I don't. It's ridiculous. Yes, it is, Randy. Tomorrow is the call-in show. If you guys want to step up and join, and we'll throw the link out there if you want to join and tell your encounters. Trying to get people some time to get in here. We had like a bunch of people in there, and what did we have? We had over 400, wasn't it, or something?
It was almost 400.
Almost 400. Well, thanks for the advice, Sparky. Been doing this for several years now, so I appreciate you giving me the advice. Trying to give some people a time to get in here to get into the chat, because what will happen is they'll get in and they'll be in the middle of the story. And they probably just think we killed the stream and don't know why. So they don't know that there's another stream here. Yeah, where is Richard at? I don't see him in here.
I thought he was the first one to comment on this. Yeah, there he is.
Yeah, there he is. Just disrupts everything. Just craziness. I just felt like I don't know what I should do with that one. I was like, man, somebody trying to accuse you of something like that. I mean, oh my gosh. Things that these people say. It's just too much. So we're gonna have to just start the show with what we got. We lost part of our audience, and it's just the way it is. Maybe they'll check it out and they'll see. We're gonna have to do a rumble. I got several people. Rain is one of them. She's willing to come on and talk, and I appreciate that, Rain, that you're willing to do that. Anthony Silsky's another, and Abe. Thank you, Abe, for that donation. Abe is another. And just to talk about and refute the things that these people are doing and saying, because they're trying to spread it all over the internet. We're these horrible people, and we're not. We're not the ones starting this. We're just responding. And we don't respond to everything. We're just responding to the worst of the accusations, because it's getting worse and worse, because they think, because the cease and desist, that they can, nothing's going to happen. That's not how it works. Okay, so tonight's story, what we're supposed to be talking about, this guy Guillermo got in touch with me, and he's living in El Paso now, but he used to live in Eagle Pass. That's in South Texas, and it's near the border. And across from there is a place called Piedras Negras. You want to look it up, Anthony?
Yeah.
When he first contacted me, he explained to me that he had listened to Abe on our show, and we interviewed Abe on the pre-records, which ended up on Spotify, Apple, the 12 different platforms, this one, a bunch of others, whatever it was. And he said he was listening to that, and he says that sounded a lot like his childhood. A little bit different, though. Abe went in when he was just a toddler. I mean, he was a very small boy. His brother was very sick, and so they took him to a curandera, and he ended up being kind of like held as a hostage, I guess, by her, and used, because when you're a child, you're closer to the spirit world, right? And you have the eye. Thank you, Rita, for joining. She's been a member for 22 months. Congratulations. And so get your name in green, folks, because you'll be eligible to watch the shows on Thursdays. Join the Patreon, $10, $20, $30, $40, $50 tier. And I'm going to break it down and explain to you exactly what you get with that, because there's some confusion. Let me do that real quick, and then we'll get right back. $10 tier, you get an autograph book, not one of mine, a regular autograph book, and then you get stickers and keychains. And if we have any of these little, figures or whatever we got that we were giving away, then we'll throw those in there too. And then you get to watch. Hang on, folks. Sorry, folks. Still having to deal with work. What? So let me explain to you, because there's been some confusion, and it won't take but 2 seconds here of your time. A $20 tier on the Patreon, you get the same thing you get on the $10 tier. It's the exact same thing, except you get a t-shirt. On the $30 tier, you get 2 books of different authors, different autographed authored books, and you get the t-shirt, and you get the stickers and all that. But you also get on the $40 tier, you get $30 tier, you get 2 books, right, and a hat.
Autograph books.
It's a hat, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The $30 tier, you get 2 books and the shirt. And then on the $40 tier, you get the $40 tier, you get the hat. You get a shirt, a hat, and the 2 autograph books. Could be from David Weatherly, Ken Gerhard, Lyle Blackburn, and then you get one of my autograph books. And then on the $50 tier, you get 2 autograph books from different authors, 2 autograph books from me. And then you get a shirt, a hat, and a hoodie. Now, the $50 tier is the only way to get the hoodie, okay? But if we don't have a hoodie or it's a different time or whatever, we will throw in another shirt. So on the $50 tier, it's a big swag bag, 2 shirts and a hat, or a shirt and a hoodie and a hat, and you get 4 books, along with all the other stuff, the keychain, the magnets, or whatever we're giving away, the stickers, the small items. So I hope that's understood. People understand that. But on the $10 tier, you don't get a shirt. You just get a book, and then because we don't have enough supplies for that. All right. But on the $20 tier, you do get that. And on the $30, $40, $50 tier, while supplies last, you will get one of the tumblers. I think we only got like 20 of them left.
Yeah.
So if you sign up now, we might be able to throw it in there for you if you're a $30, $40, $50 tier. And after 2 months, you get that swag box. And then after 6 months, you get another one. And then you get another one every 6 months. And it's a great way to help promote the show and support the show. And it's the best deal. So thank you for that. That's Patreon. Okay. That being said, if you're a giveaway winner, whatever we told you you get, that's what you get. Whether we're giving away a book, or we're giving away a hat, or we're giving away shirts. This giveaway tonight, we're going to do one tonight, but it's going to be for my autograph books. So if you want to win an autograph book of mine, then stick around till the end of the show. That's the only way to get my books autographed. It's either a giveaway or through the Patreon. There's no other way to do it. Okay. So that being said, here we go. So when this guy reached out to me, he is not a listener of the show. His Walita is, his grandmother is, but she told him, she's like, you should give your story to this guy, Josh Turner. And in fact, he gave it to me. I think it was over a year ago that he gave it to me. It was like last September. And so I had a lot going on, and I don't remember the email. And if you remember, guys, our email got dumped.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of stuff that we had to clear it out, and we thought it was in the junk. But a lot of regular stuff got thrown out too. And I told this guy, I said, that may have been what happened to your email. So he got in touch with me about 4 months ago. And he told me, I guess June, what is June, July, August, September, October? Is that 4 months? Maybe 5, well, no, 5 months ago.
Yeah.
Back in June, he got in touch with me and he says, look, I reached out to you before last year, and I want to know if you're interested in hearing my story. Since his grandmother tuned him into the show, he started listening. He's not a religious listener, but he's a casual listener, and he checks out the live streams every now and then, but he mostly listens on Spotify. He's a pod person. And bless him, you know. But God bless him for being a listener one way or the other. Here's the thing. When we first started talking about this, he told me, he says, there was a lot of similarities between my encounter. Thank you for that donation. And, you know, Abe Seus's encounter. The difference, though, is that he was older when he had his situation happen. He was 7 years old. When he was 7 years old, he got really sick, and his parents didn't know what it was. He's your age. He's Anthony's. He's in his mid-30s now. So he ended up, you know, he was living with his grandmother. He was in between jobs, you know, and his grandmother told him, she's like, because he had gotten really sick. And she told him, she says, jokingly, she says, you want to go back to Mexico City? And he goes, no. She says, you should tell your encounter to Josh Turner. He could do your, he's like, who's this guy? And she goes, this is the guy that I'm always listening to. And by his grandmother, she listens to us religiously. Okay. So Stella, thank you for being a listener of Paranormal Roundtable. I already told him, hit me up and I will send his grandmother and him some merch. So here's the thing. We talked and I liked him. He was a pretty cool guy. He had a bit of a problem, like being kind of nervous when we first talked, and talking about this is scary to him. One of the fears that he had, and this is very prevalent in the Hispanic community, is that this is something that could potentially come back on you. What I mean is, in the Hispanic community and in the Native community, they're both very guarded, and they're both very similar because they're both Native, really. There's a lot of Natives in the Hispanic community. You're taught in these communities, and it's also something in the Gypsy community. It's something that you see in some of the Eastern European communities, some of the Far East Asian communities, certain people from different provinces of India, not all of them. Some of them believe you're supposed to talk about it. It's very diverse. And then some Middle Eastern communities. You are not supposed to talk about these things that happen because you conjure these things up, or you give them power, or they come after you. Here at PRT, obviously, we don't believe like that, because if we did, we wouldn't be saying anything about anybody's encounters at all. I believe that it's therapeutic, it's cathartic. You need to talk about these things, and we need to get to the bottom of what is happening to these people. Guillermo had a problem. When he was 7 years old, he had asthma real bad, and he nearly died. And he had these allergies, and I know this because I didn't have asthma, but I had allergies real bad. And his allergies would trigger asthma attacks to the point where he couldn't go to public school anymore. He couldn't go to school because if he went to school, something could happen to him at the school, and they just were not prepared for it. He ended up in the nurse's office once. He nearly died. And so they decided that the best course of action was to take him to a healer. Now, these people, they are also part Lipan. That's a type of Apache, right? His grandmother is half. So he's got Lipan Apache, probably some Yaqui too from where he's at. And he's Hispanic. So he's probably got some Mexican Indian too, which is its own type of native. So she originally was from there, but her husband was originally from north of Mexico City. That's where he originally from. He was a truck driver, and they met when he had taken a load up to Piedras Negras. And then what they did was, back in those days, they would drop the materials off, and then another company would take it and offload it in the States, somebody who had like a pass that could travel back and forth. And so eventually Clinton came to power, and he did this NAFTA thing, where you could, do whatever. But that wouldn't be till later. That was probably like 30 something years ago. And this was like 50 something years ago. And so his grandmother, she had his mother when she was later in life. She was 40, I think he said 42 or something like that. And she was not supposed to happen. But get this, that was her only child. Start with her, his grandmother, Stella. Thank you for being a listener, first of all. She was told that she was barren. She would never have children. And what happened was, she had an accident when she was a young girl, and she fell off of a burro, a donkey, and it ruptured something down inside of her. And there was a surgery, whatever, and they told her that she would never have a child. Years later, her mother took her to a curandera, and get this woman, she was, by Stella's own admission, this woman was old back then. Like, Stella was like, I talked to her. I said, how old do you think this woman was when you first saw her? She said probably early 60s, right? This is when she was a teenager, okay? This is what I'm talking about these people, these brujas. That means witch in Spanish. What ended up happening, this woman it's like, let me not jump ahead here. When she got sick, her older sister got really sick about 10 years later. She was 26 years old when this happened. Her older sister was like 28. They took her to see this woman. She already had 2 kids. And they said the same thing to her. She wasn't going to be able to have children anymore. She got really sick, and she needed to have a surgery to, whatever. And I don't know if people understand what that is, but she had this thing they call fibroids real bad. And so they said that it had gotten really bad and she needed to have a surgery. They took her to this curandera. She told her to do these little rituals, basically, and nothing blood or anything like that. But she remembers, Stella says, I remember it was weird. Like they told her, because back in those days, they didn't really know how to treat something like that, And so they were like, well, these are tumors. We're just going to have to take, whatever. So she was having blood loss, things like that, and becoming anemic. And it gets weird. Okay, you got to follow me. When they took her to this woman, she told her, she says, do these things, this and that. She goes, and then she gave her holy water, and get this, and rattlesnake venom. All right. She said, lay the rattlesnake venom down. This is a weird story. Stella says, my older sister, Ruby, this is what they told her. They told Ruby to lay the rattlesnake venom down in the corner of the room. If you have any pets, don't leave them in there. Wear gloves. Be really careful. She did this. She said that rattlesnake venom will draw out the evil spirit, which is a vampiric type entity. Not the woman didn't tell her that, but that's what it was. And it is feasting on the blood from your body. They were a little bit skeptical. But her mother said, look, if this woman, could heal you when you were young and you had all these things happen to you, you were supposed to have this surgery and all this stuff. And it turned out that she just needed to hold the broom and walk around the broom two times a day at 5 and 6 p.m., whatever it was, She's like, if that could happen and you will one day have children. She told her mother this, and it makes sense. She's like, I've tried now with my husband, and I've not had a child. I'm 26 years old, and I still don't have a kid. So I don't think that this woman was correct. I don't think it worked. I did what she said and did all this weird stuff. And it was weird. It was like you're supposed to jump over a broom, and there was all this other stuff you're supposed to do, like for like a week and then off and then a week on.
Do the hokey pokey.
Yeah, it was a bunch of weird stuff. Like you had to have it timed, like 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. I thought it was kind of odd too, because it was all 6 this and 6 that. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of weird. So she tells her, well, you can have children. It's going to happen because I believe this woman, because this woman healed her when she was younger. So she believed it. This woman also supposedly healed her mother. So that's her great grandmother. How old is this woman? Right. Then she says, you put the rattlesnake venom in the corner of the room. This will draw this evil spirit out. You will see it. You will know what it is. You will know that it's there. When this appears, then you throw holy water at it, and you drape. It was a really large rosary. You throw it over the neck of this being. I thought I would not want to get that close, that I have to try to throw or lasso a demon, or something. So her sister, who's having all these problems, and they're telling her, you're never going to have any more children. Just pack it in. We're done. That's what they told her, the doctor. They go out into the middle of nowhere, and they talk to this curandera, and she tells her, no, you'll be fine. It's a healer, right? She's like, no, you'll be fine. At this point, she was half blind. And she says, you just got to do this. In the middle of the night, about 2 nights later, everybody's asleep. She's like, her and her brother hear this awful scream because they were all staying at her sister's house because they were told that they needed 3 people to stay there in 3 rooms around her. She had to sleep in the living room, and the three people had to sleep in a triangle around her, right? It could be anywhere in the house, but it had to make a triangle, is what they told her. She wakes up screaming, and the bottle of holy water is empty. It is gone. And they asked her, they said, Ruby, what happened? Now, Ruby tells them this crazy story. The story that she told was so weird. She hears this hissing, rattling noise. It sounds like a snake. She looks in the corner of which was the living room. She sees by the light of the moon. She sees, because there was no lights. It was just the moonlight coming through the window. She sees this being, and that's what she was told to do, to open the windows so that she could see. She was not to have any lights on in the house, or the being wouldn't appear. It wouldn't work, right? The thing that she saw in the corner of the room was a dog-like creature on all fours, about the size of a dog. It had paws like a dog. It sat like a dog, and it sat upright. But it had these weird downward curved horns. They didn't spiral. They just came down and they curved. And it had this weird mouth like a dog, like a muzzle like a dog. But the nose and where the eyes were and the horns, it was like a bull. So it was about the size of a large dog. From the description of it, it sounds like a mastiff of some kind, like with the way it would look, like about that size. Not a Great Dane or anything like that, but like a mastiff or a Rottweiler type size dog. And her sister, who's still alive, she's very adamant that this really happened. She in a moment's courage, she threw the holy water on it. This thing began to like flinch and jump around, turning in circles and banging into the wall, which eventually woke up Stella. Stella comes out of the room. She sees this black shadow, and her sister's telling her, "Help me, help me." She said her sister was so pale from blood loss. She was so pale. And she said that she was ill, she was very ill. And the surgery back then, they were poor. And back then you had surgery in Mexico. It wasn't no foregone conclusion that you were just going to be able to do it.
Oh,
They'd
yeah.
give you a schedule. And if you died before the surgery, well, you died. Just like with poor beggars and homeless people, you weren't guaranteed food. There was no SNAP or WIC or none of that stuff. You couldn't eat. You couldn't eat. She takes this oversized rosary. She throws it. She misses. This dog-like creature is surrounded by this weird bluish green flame. She cannot get the rosary, like she can't reach into this flame, because from what she was told by this, let's just call it what it is, this witch, if she did, this thing could bite her and pull her into its dimension.
Huh.
Yeah, well, she called it its land, but that's not where you want to go, right? She said, this is powerful magic that's being used against you, and it was her neighbor. Now, they think that they figured out who it was that sent this to her, that caused the bleeding and all the problems and the miscarriage, and then she found out, She couldn't reach in and grab it, but part of the rosary was out. She says, and Stella says, I had to be brave. I ran over there. My sister was so weak, she was barely standing. She's like, I grabbed the end of this rosary and I pulled it and I took it and I threw it over this thing's head. The thing shook, vibrated, turned into smoke, and was gone. Then I turned on the lights and it was gone. It was over. This really worked. She said this particular concoction, whatever it was, took this thing out. She goes, and then we all prayed. She's like, but I couldn't help but feel like it wasn't over.
No, of course.
Like there was something else going on. So for several nights, her and her sister, not right away, but later on, her and her sister had these dreams, and they were in October. She said it was like the week leading up to Halloween. She's like, I'll never forget. We started seeing what looked like a big shadow with long limbs, walking kind of like a spider. It would crawl up on the walls, but it was just four-legged thing. It was a four-legged thing, but it had the head of a man. She said that this thing would roam around the house, and you would hear like a clunking noise of like boots, but it would walk on the walls and the ceiling, never on the floor. And she said that this started about, a couple months after this whole incident with her sister. And this was at her mother's house where she was now staying, because her and her husband were separated at that time. And she said that her and her husband were going through some problems, but back then divorce was a big thing. You didn't just go, well, I'm going to get a divorce, because that didn't happen. And her mother was like, no, you're not getting a divorce. You're going to hang out here. Her husband and her had some bad fights. She believed that there was some infidelity, and he swore he didn't, whatever. She could never prove it because she was having these weird dreams. Looking back on it, she told me too, she goes, I think that this demon was giving me bad dreams. So here's what happened. This woman that had these problems, she ended up going to her curandera woman friend, whatever, and telling her, she's like, I confronted her. She goes, I am now 32. This was later on. She's like, we've had a ton of problems. The incidents are still occurring at my grandmother's house and at my sister, or at my mother's house, my sister's house. She's like, it's not stopping. It's not going away. And I need you to be honest with me because you sort of helped my sister. She's still having problems, but the problem that she had, with her body has gone away. She went on to have another child. She goes, and I've been trying to have a child, but I can't. She told her, she says, the woman or the husband, the man that you are with right now, he is infertile. She says, and by the time you are 37 years old, you will no longer be with this man. She thought, this is absolutely crazy. She goes, I am head over heels, madly in love with this man. Why would I not be with this man? What are you talking about? How could that possibly be? When she was 37 years old, this man was still driving his truck. His truck was robbed by bandits just north of Mexico City, right outside of where he was from. He was heading back to the warehouse because he had forgot something. He had left, he turned back around, and they were robbing one of his friends. He tried to intervene, and he was shot and killed. He was 37 years old, so was she. She was devastated. So for about 3 years, she didn't do anything. She just kind of gave up on the idea that she was getting. Now, this is Guillermo's grandmother, right? She gave up on the idea that she was ever going to have a child or ever get married again, or meet a good man to have a child with, for that matter. And she's like, and I wanted a child more than anything. And in Hispanic culture, it's like they put an emphasis on breeding. It's like,
of course,
you got to have a kid. If you don't have children, you ain't nothing, and they worship eggs.
Yeah.
Because of fertility,
You got to have a kid by the time you're 14.
Everything is wevel this and wevel that.
Yeah.
Wevel. So this woman confronts her. She says at this point, she was older, but she didn't look like she was like 100 years old, which she should have right at that point. And she says, this woman tells her, she's like, she was already like half blind. She would touch her head. She touched her head and she says, do you believe now? When she went back to see her, she says, I'm 40 years old. I don't believe you. And she touched her head and she had this quick vision of her meeting this man and then her going into labor and having a child. She goes, do you believe now? She says, okay. So she says, I don't know what it was. She goes, I took the rosary that my sister had used against that, what they called the cadejo, the black dog, which I don't know what that was that's what that was. It sounded like Gozer from the Ghostbusters or whatever. But she said, not to be funny, but but she said, I took that rosary and it was a silver rosary. She's like, and I took it and I dipped it in the holy water and I talked to this priest and he prayed with me. There were some nuns that I had gone to Catholic school. I'd gone to the school. I was really good friends with them and they prayed with me and they all said, you're gonna have a child. And I thought, I'm 40 years old now. It's not going to happen. She goes to a church function, a Jamaica. You know what those are?
Yeah.
And it's like they do like an auction.
Festival.
It's a festival, but they do like some of them have like an auction to help raise money for the church.
Mm-hmm.
And they have them once or twice a year. I think there's one in the spring, one in the fall. So she goes, this was in the fall. I go to the Jamaica. She goes, and I meet this guy. And it's the priest's cousin. And she goes, he's very handsome. He's 38 years old. He's a couple years younger than her. She goes, and it was love at first sight. And we got together. He was a widower. His wife had something happen to her. He had no children, and he wanted children. And he was kind of apprehensive because she was 40 and supposedly barren. She's like, we had a whirlwind, whatever. She's like, we got together. We got married within 6 months, and then within another month, I was pregnant. And she's like, and I was ecstatic. When I first started getting sick, I started noticing she goes, I think I'm pregnant. This curandera called her and says, you remember when I told you you were going to be pregnant? She says, there is a price to pay for that. She's like, and I need a lock of the child's hair when the child turns 5. She was like, "Why do you need this?" She's like, "If you don't do this, I'm going to have to allow this child to be cursed." She's like, and this is what she said. She says, "Nothing to do with me." She's like, "But you, your mother, your sister all agreed with this. And I told you that if we did what we did, right, which involved a sacrifice." She said, "I could scarcely remember, not her words, mine. She said, I could scarcely remember the sacrifice. Get this. The sacrifice was a lizard,
Hmm.
right?" She goes, "I thought it was weird." I'm like, why am I cutting open a lizard? Is this a weird thing, right? She said, "But this is what the woman wanted." And she said, "This is what she needed." And she needed the innards of the lizard, right? So she said, "I had to go into the desert, find a lizard, which appeared strangely enough." She goes, "And I took it to her and she did this." And I thought, wow, I can't even remember that. I didn't even remember doing that. She says, "Yeah, so I need a lock of your child's hair." This would be Guillermo's mother. So she does. She gives her a lock of her hair. She says, "But I think that this witch tricked us." And I think when of course she did. And she said, when my daughter was 25 years old, she's like, it was very sad. She's like, but right after Guillermo was born, she passed away.
No.
She went to bed one night. It was weird. She fell off of her horse. She went to bed, woke up. She complained about a headache, didn't wake up. Very sad. And Guillermo was like barely a year and a half old. Didn't know his mother. And his dad, he was a drunk, got into a fight, got stabbed, passed away in some other part of Mexico. So Guillermo was taken in and raised by his grandmother and her sister, his great aunt, who he was very close with too. And his mother's sister was another one. He was very close to her. Her name was Sylvia. Sylvia took him in and helped raise him. So part of his life, he was raised with these three women. Sad thing is, Ruby passed away when he was 17. When he was 17 years old, his great aunt Ruby, who was very close with, that was his grandmother's sister, she passed away. Sylvia took on the duties of kind of the day-to-day. Like she took him in. She had two kids. They were his cousins. He was in between them in age. They were both boys. And so he lived with them for the most part. His grandmother was getting older and was not able to fully care for him the way that Stella admitted it. She's like, she's like, I was getting older. She had broken her hip. And she had never fully recovered from falling off of that donkey. And it just was something that, she's like, I thought it was weird that my daughter had fallen off of a donkey at the age of 25. 5 years old, she gives the lock of hair to this bruja. Every 5 years, she had something weird happen. Well, here's the thing. When Guillermo was a child, his aunt panicked because he was very sick and he almost died from asthma. So she took him to this curandera against the advice of her mother, the grandmother. Said, I didn't want him going to this woman after what happened to my daughter. She's like, and I thought this is probably, not a good idea. When she found out, she chastised Sylvia big time and told her, she says, you never should have taken her to that woman. She says, well, if we don't, he's going to pass away. Because a friend of hers, and this is the superstition in the Hispanic community, a friend of hers, I don't know her name, but she had multiple dreams and had said that he was going to die young. And supposedly she had been telling her this since he was like 2 or 3. She's like, that child is going to die at the age of 8. He's going to asphyxiate from, he can't, breathe. She was terrified. Sylvia told her mother, who was Guillermo's grandmother, and she's like, "Ay, mentiras, way. That's not going to happen. Don't buy into that." She goes, "That's the devil trying to get us to do this or do that. We never should have ever gone to this curandera. That woman is a bruja, not a curandera." With and even rumors that she was a lechuza.
Mm-hmm.
When Guillermo had just turned 8, it was 2 days after his, or 3 days after his 8th birthday party. He was walking home with some friends, and his piñata had a bunch of candy, right? So they took it and they went and they were playing pool at one of his friends, and their dad was teaching him how to shoot pool, and he had all this candy in his pockets. And he said that he sees this giant, what looks like a bird, kind of like an owl up in a tree. He's like, but when I got closer, he goes, it was weird. The face looked flat, and it looked like a smiley face made out of flesh.
Yeah.
And he goes, it was weird. It was like, kind of like a pie. He goes, it was like a
Mhm.
weird looking pie like thing. He's like, and this bird said candy. And he's like, I'm 8 years old. And I'm like thinking, am I really seeing this? He's like, I wasn't one of those like kids that had an active imagination, like, oh, Godzilla, I saw Godzilla, you know, or Frankenstein's monster or some weird. He's like, I wasn't into any of that. He goes, I played a lot of video games. He's like, but I was like, I know what I'm seeing. He goes, and we lived in this older neighborhood. He's like, and there were big, thick trees right there that people had planted in that neighborhood. So people had their own, you know, and in that particular yard, he goes, there were all these weird cans with rocks in them. Yeah. And one of the things they do is they use those as an alarm system for witches. So he thinks that particular and some people use them to ward them off. It depends. Like witches use them to ward off other witches. Just if you see that, be careful. So he said that he thinks that those cans with the rocks in them, either that's where this witch lived, or that was a witch that was using it to, you know. But either way, it's still witchcraft. He goes, and I see this giant bird. He goes, and it wasn't the size of a human. It was just a big, big bird. He said, I would say probably like twice the size of a vulture. The vultures are huge. We got these huge turkey vultures here. He says, I see this thing, and it says candy. And of course, you know, when this thing, there's another thing that happens too. Sometimes it'll say, "Tu quieres candy," right? Like, you know what that means? If anybody knows what that means, you want to tell people what that means?
What? Asking if you want candy?
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So basically saying, do you want some candy? Right? You know how when your mom gives you an ass whooping and she said, "Tu quieres cookies?" I don't know if my mom did. I don't know if y'all's did, but it was like, I don't want no damn cookies after you done beat me down. You know, that's a way to get people to, hey, I'm sorry for giving you an ass whooping. But sometimes you deserve it, right? So he had heard of this. So he thought this thing is asking or is telling me that if I want candy. So and here's the thing, it's a trick, folks. Okay. Just like if you hear it whistle at night, you're not supposed to whistle back. Okay. That's the legend. That's the story. He goes, I was a little pendejo. I didn't know. He goes, I had a pocket full of it. He goes, and I pulled it out and I showed it the witch, which is what it was, that I had candy already. And he goes, no, thank you. I got candy. This thing smiled real big. That's when he saw the smiley face, and it looked like a giant pie. He goes, and when it came out into the open, this what looked like a flat, happy face turned into like this mask, and it like you could see where the beak was and everything. It was turning into a nose, and it was becoming a woman. And he's like, and it was becoming a woman right before my eyes. It was growing. He goes, and I threw the candy into the yard and took off running. He said, man, you know, it was crazy because he's like, I had no idea like how many mistakes I made. He told me, he goes, I had no clue. He said that night, he goes, I was in my room. I didn't have the heart to tell my tia that, you know, I had done this. He hears scratching on the window, tapping on the window, and then something on his roof. He ends up going into his parents, what he calls his parents, his aunt and uncle's room, and his uncle and him were very close. And his aunt was asleep, and his uncle's like, "Mijo, what's wrong?" And he says, "You know, Uncle Pancho, I made a mistake." You know, and he tells them the whole story, and they hear it. So he goes into his room, him and the older brother, the older cousin, and they're listening. So they go outside, and his Uncle Pancho is just Frank in Spanish, right? Pancho goes outside and he's like, got a gun, and he's like looking around. And he sees this, what looks like a nude woman covered in light feathers on the roof. He shoots at it. The neighbors come out. Everybody freaks out. This thing turned upward into like a giant bird, like real fast. And this was his exact words. He goes, I saw this. Guillermo tells me, he said it happened so fast, it looked like a transformer, dude. He goes like Starscream, Thundercracker, like, you know, we were talking about Transformers, and he said he was really into it. And we talked about it. I said, "Oh, dude, I love that." He was complimenting me on my shirts, which I think they're pretty cool. This is Vega from Street Fighter, by the way. So he says, the Generation 1 were really cool. That how they would transform and take off. I said, yeah. You had 3 of them at that time. Was it Thundercracker, Skywarp, Starscream?
Mm-hmm.
And so this thing flies like that. He goes, it transformed in mid-flight and was gone. No wings flapping, just like it took off like a jet. He said, I can tell you, it looked like a freaking transformer the way it did it. And it was fast. And he's like, the next day, he goes, I was back at school. I was in and out of school because I had this real bad allergies. I was real sick. And I barely could go anywhere but myself. And my aunt was already like, at that point, you're not going anywhere by yourself. You can't do nothing. She was babying him. And part of it was because he was all that she had from, his sister. That was it. His mom had only given birth to him. And his mother was the only child of his mom. The aunt, Sylvia, was taken in and raised by his grandmother when her sister passed away. She had 2 sisters. When one of them passed, I don't know her name, but when she passed away, she took Sylvia in. So technically, yeah, his aunt, but that would have been his mother's first cousin. So he's like, I literally was raised by my mom's first cousin, with my second cousin, but I called her Aunt Sylvia. But because my mom was an only child, I was an only child, and Sylvia was very close with her adopted sister. And so she's like, that's all that was left of her lineage was me. And she treated her, grandmother, his grandmother, very, very, very kindly, because that's the only grandmother he had. That's the only person that he was really close to other than Sylvia. He goes, I had cousins and I got along real good with my Uncle Pancho. He's like, but as far as women in my life, those were the only 2 that I was really close to. I wasn't close to my cousins, nothing. He's like, and I can tell you this. He's like, I know that my mother passed away when I was very young. He's like, but at least on 2 different occasions, I saw her. He's like, I saw her one time when I was having an asthma attack when I was 6. He goes, and I'm pretty sure when I was a toddler, I saw her. He goes, and that's the only memory I have before the age of 6. Because y'all's generation don't have memories, which is weird from when you're young. And so I don't know. I think I have my own theories about that.
Heavy metals in the brain.
Probably. And this kid said, that he's like, I didn't have any memories until then. And both memories were of my mother. And I had never met my mother. She died when I was like 1 year and 6 months. So that's the dynamic there, right? So he's kind of like doted on because his mother was very close with this other woman who was technically his cousin. But they stepped up and they took care of him. So he ends up going to school sporadically. He goes, I was always behind. I had another asthma attack, nearly died. I ended up in the hospital. And at that point, Sylvia's like, I'm taking you to this woman. They take him to the curandera. She says, there's nothing I can do for you. She goes, but there is a woman in Mexico City. She says, I used to live there. She's like, I grew up there, and this woman is my older sister. She's like, and I owe her a favor anyway. So, or she owes me a favor anyway, and I'll send you there, and she will heal him, and then that'll make us even. And when you return, I'll tell you what I need. Her friend, on the other hand, was sitting there telling her, if you don't do this, he's going to die soon. He's going to have an attack. His allergies are real bad. He's allergic to everything, and eventually the asthma is going to get him. Sylvia didn't want that to happen. So when she was growing up, she was bullied. She had a condition. I'm not going to get into it. And she was picked on and abused by the other children. And her sister, her adopted sister, the one that passed away, Guillermo's mother, was very kind to her and like stuck up for her and doted on her, and basically didn't let anybody hurt her. And so they were very close. So when she died, young, tragically, then it was, like I said. So this woman talks to her husband, and Pancho says, I don't don't believe this. We shouldn't do this. She's like, I'm worried that any day something could happen to him and he's gone. She's like, and I don't want that to happen. So she goes to her mother, her basically her aunt, whatever, who is Guillermo's grandmother, and tells her what she's going to do. Stella's like, this is a terrible idea. This isn't going to work. And it didn't save, my sister and didn't save my daughter. But if you want to try it, you go ahead because I'm not going to be able to stop you. So she tried the guilt route, which didn't work. And Sylvia took her son, one of her oldest son, to go with her, and Guillermo, and they went to Mexico City. They drove down to a larger city down in Mexico, and then from there they had some friends and they hung out with them for a couple days, and then they flew down to Mexico City, the capital of Mexico. And Guillermo told me, I've never been to Mexico City. He said, and I know a lot of people who have, and people who used to live there. And he said, it was crazy, dude. He goes, imagine the largest city you've ever been to. People everywhere, dude. Markets all over the place as far as the eye could see. Big buildings. He's like, traffic is just, it's just his words, whereas it's screwed, but he used a different word, right? He said it was terrible. He's like, and right there in the heart of the city, he's like surrounded by all these big buildings. He goes, we go into this little bodega. He's like, and out front, there's a guy selling like ice cream and these popsicles and all this other stuff, the chamoy snacks, all that crap. And he goes, and in the back, he goes, there's this little beads, right? You go to the back. He's like, there's a storeroom. He's like, and it's so weird, dude. He goes, it's just like you would imagine. Like, imagine how this city is built. He's telling me this. I already know, and I'm listening. And he says the city is, of course, as you know, it's built over the top of the ruins of the Aztec Empire. It's built on top of a lot of death. The Aztecs, in fact, I just was talking to somebody online earlier about this, and one day they actually sacrificed 84,000, not one day, but at the opening of the Great Temple of Tenochtitlan, they actually sacrificed 84,000 people over a 4-day period. And people will say, oh, that's all just propaganda. That never happened, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to tell you right now, it did. Absolutely, it did. The Spaniards didn't make up these same stories about the Incans or the Mayans. They did say the Mayans committed human sacrifice, but the Aztecs committed human sacrifice on a level that the world had never seen, that we know of. Now, I'm sure it's happened before, but it happened on a level that we had not seen, a level that had not been seen since or before. And I believe this because there's a lot of archaeological evidence that points to the fact that these things really did happen. They have been digging to lay foundations and things of buildings and stuff, and the ground is caved in, and they've found thousands and thousands of skeletons. And just because everything's been built over it doesn't mean it's not there. Can you imagine living in that city, built over Lake Texcoco, right? And you just, building a house, and there's just like a sinkhole, and it goes into like a chamber with like thousands of bones.
Mass grave.
Yeah.
There's one right underneath your bedroom.
That happens a lot. That really does happen, like quite a bit. The lake, they polluted the lake with these sacrifices on more than one occasion. On one occasion, they polluted it so bad that nobody could drink the water for over a month. And people almost like died. Like, not people did die, but I'm saying like a lot of people, it was almost a problem to where, like, I think it was like an eighth of the population died of thirst. They couldn't, and some of them that drank the water died because it was so polluted with blood. I'm not even joking. It's a matter of their records, not what the Spaniards claim happened. They were told this, and I believe it was under the reign of Cuauhtemoc. But there was another guy, and we'll get into him in a minute because I don't want you to make a mistake here on who we're talking about. So he goes, we go to the back in this storeroom. He's like, and we descend these stairs. He's like, we get to the bottom of the stairs. He goes, and there's this draft, and it's very echoey. And I'm a little kid. He goes, and I can, whatever I say echoes. And there's this long hallway, and it's paved on both sides. And he goes, and there were like bumpy inscription drawings all over the sides of these walls. He goes, and I'm telling you, I knew immediately this was from a time like back when these people, Mesoamerican, pre-Columbian, right? He's like, and we're walking, and she's like, entra, entra. And this woman takes us, very beautiful woman, takes us into this back room. He goes, and I look down the hallway, and they had all gone into this room, and I was standing there. I was looking down the hallway, and I saw a vision of a man who was holding his chest. He was holding his chest, and there was blood all over this man, just going down his arm, down to his body. And he looked like he was, like he had been killed. And he was just standing there looking at me with his eyes wide. He goes, I didn't see what was behind the whatever he was holding. He's like, because I was a kid, I didn't know anything about it. He goes, and then I get grabbed and pulled into the room. And into the room, it's almost like a little doctor's office. There's a little bed there, like, you lay down on the bed, and they talk to you, and there's all these instruments. And this old woman who's moving around on this concrete floor on this little rolling chair. It's like one of them little chairs you see in the doctor's office, it's round.
Yeah.
And she's like, and she's checking me out, grabbing my neck, listening to my heart like a doctor would. And then she tells him, she's like, you're going to have to do this, all this weird crap. She's like, and then he will get better. She's like, but if you don't do this for the next 5 days, and she's like, and you have to leave tomorrow night. She's like, you have to come back, and I got to do this ceremony. And then tomorrow night you have to get on a plane and be back. Because if you stay too long, it won't work. Something will happen. This is all a bunch of weirdness. And like, he's sitting there going like, I don't believe that this is going to work. I think these people are just, full of crap. He goes, I don't believe this. He's like, but while I'm standing there, he goes, I look over in the corner of the room and I see a man standing there looking at me. He's like, and he was a man. He had his arms crossed. He was just standing there like this. He's like, and I'm looking at this guy. He's very muscular. And he had this like, dark brown skin. He's like, but I look at his face, and his face looks weird. He's got this greenish feather going up from his, whatever this thing is he's wearing on his face. He's like, at the time, I didn't know what it was. He goes, now I look back on it. He goes, I know what it was. It was the skin of a person. He was wearing a person's skin. And it was this mask. And he goes, and I'm looking at this man. He goes, and then when he turned to walk away, I noticed I couldn't see his legs from below the knees. He had no legs. This guy walks out of the room, and he's sitting there, and he's like, I don't know what the hell that was. He's like, at that point, I'm thinking, I probably am being possessed. He's like, I felt something slithering up across my back. And then I felt a sharp pain at the base of my back. He goes, I jumped off the table real quick. And then the woman grabbed my spine. She's like, it's almost like she could grab it with her hands. He's like, but she literally just had her knuckles on my back, but it felt like fingers on my spine. And whatever this was, she yanked it back out of me. She's like, and I turn around and all I see is like this weird smoke. He's like, and that was it. He goes, I went unconscious. He goes, and the next thing you know, I'm outside and I'm being put into the car by this other big guy. And they said, see you tomorrow. When they take him to the hotel where they're staying at, he says that night a person or persons came and knocked on the door. And he's like, my aunt, Sylvia, answers the door, and my older brother there, and he's a good guy. He goes, my older brother and my younger brother both are very good people, technically his cousins, but they treated him like a brother. He goes, we grew up together. And he was making sure that I was okay. He had tucked me into bed. They were putting ice on me because I was very hot. He's like, and then he goes, I started having an asthmatic attack. He goes, I couldn't breathe. And he goes, and it was bad. He goes, I thought, this is it. I'm going to die. I cannot breathe. He's like, I felt like it was very hot and humid in the room, even though the AC was on. And these two people come into the room, and it's this old woman and this younger lady that was there, which he found out was her granddaughter. They go into the room. This older woman, he goes, she looks freaking ancient, dude. He's like, she looks like a mummy. And this is his words. He's like, and she put her hands on me. He goes, and all of a sudden, my heart, my chest, everything started. He goes, wheezing. He goes, I sat up and I spit up what looked like a big chunk of bile. It was so nasty. It went to the. He goes, and it went directly into the trash can across the room, like it floated over there. It was weird. He's like, it was projected, but it was bizarre the way it did it. And he's like, and then I'm laying there. He goes, and I have this horrible headache. Everything's spinning. He goes, and the last thing I remember is my cousin looking down at me, asking me if I was okay, and it was like an echo. He's like, years later, I had a surgery. He's like, and it sounded like that. He's like, so it was weird. It was like I had some kind of, like I had been drugged or something. And then the next day, he goes, I wake up and they're like, put on your clothes, don't shower, because they said him not to shower, not to do anything, not to mess with his body at all. And just come as you are. Don't mess with your hair. Don't do anything, because it could strip away this protection that you have, right? This is what they told him. He gets into the car and he takes off to go to the place where this bodega was, this little shop. He said it was hard trying to find this place. They were driving around for like 2 hours in circles trying to find this place, right? At first, it's like, okay, we get into this store, we go down the stairs, we go to this back stairwell. He goes, I still wonder why there's this long hallway and what's down there. I don't know. He's like, but I walk in after I'm staring down the hallway again, and this old woman grabs me and she tells him in Spanish, curiosity killed the cat. Don't look. Right? She's like, it's not for you to know. So he holds up a mirror to his face. After he's laying on the bed, they hold up this mirror to his face. They put it to his face. He just stared at the mirror. He goes, my eyes went completely black. He's like, and I'm looking at the mirror and I see this. He goes, I can't describe it like a snake. It was more like a worm, and it came out of my mouth and started slithering around. And they told him, no matter what you do, don't move, don't do anything, whatever. This thing crawls all over him and then goes down into his navel. He's like, I can feel like this pressure going into my navel. He's like, and then they tell me I'm fine and everything's ready and you will not have illness ever again. You will not be sick. He's like, and point of fact, he goes, here I am years later. He's like, literally 30 years later, never been sick. He goes, so whatever they did, it worked. There was I had no more illness. I could breathe. I wasn't on the verge of dying every time I wanted to play with my friends or something. And he's like, and that time, he goes, with the candy, he goes, it was weird because it was the one time where my mother, Sylvia, let me go by myself to my friend's house without being escorted. He goes, and it was weird because when I asked her, she was just like, sure, mijo, go ahead. Like a robot.
Yeah.
Then he runs into this witch, right? I think they were watching him, right? Once this thing goes into him, now remember, he's a little kid. He says, I don't speak fluent Spanish. I understand it, but I'm not like fluently at it, He goes, I start talking in Spanish, perfect Spanish. He's like, and then I start talking in another language. I don't know what it was. I do. I know what it was. It was Nahuatl. That's what I believe. When he was talking, he goes, and when the words that he was describing, he was talking to this witch in the native tongue of the Aztecs. And I believe that's what he was doing. He was speaking Nahuatl, and he was talking to this woman and giving her information. And she was like staring off across the room. But what he was saying, her hand was moving and writing it down in Spanish. He's like, it was weird. It was like I could see this, but I couldn't tell what I was saying. And I don't know why I was saying it, but it was like I had no control over what I was doing. He goes, and my legs were swinging back and forth, up and down. I don't know why. I was sitting on this little bed. And he's like, it was weird. He goes, so after this was over and she got whatever information she needed from me, I left. He goes, and then all I remember is getting on the plane. I woke up at the airport. Don't even remember the hotel. Wake up and we're on the plane and we're landing. And then there's this long drive from that city in northern Mexico. And from there, which I think was Monterrey. He didn't even remember what city it was. It was so bad. We tried to talk to his aunt about it. She's like, don't talk about it. Don't bring it up. Don't do this. Don't do that. And his grandmother's like, oh, just do whatever you got to do. She says she thinks it was Monterey, but Sylvia didn't tell her all the details. So his grandmother doesn't know fully because it was something that she forbid her to do, but she did it anyway. He comes back across the border to Eagle Pass via Piedras Negras. And then, and it is across the border, right, from Eagle Pass?
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, and so and the reason I'm asking is it's to show people a map of where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you could show people a map of South Texas and Mexico City, so you'll see. Mexico City is not close.
No.
It's way down there.
So,
when he comes back from this crazy trip that he has, this stuff that went on here.
here's right here.
Yeah, let me show you. You got it?
Yeah, the red dot is where where Piedras Negras.
You see the red dot, and then you
Mexico
see
City's
Monterrey is down there. So that was where he went. And then from Monterrey, they jumped on a plane down to Mexico City. See it? It's a long trip, long way from home. The people of northern Mexico are not, they are not Aztec. So it's always funny to me when somebody especially from Southern California, when they're like, yeah, I have Aztec. Really? Because give me that map again. I doubt that very seriously. And they're always talking about Aslan and all this other stuff.
Aslan and all this
Oh,
stuff.
man.
That was one tribe in that region. Most people in Mexico are probably not descended from Aztecs at all.
No.
They're descended from other.
So here is a
indigenous
bigger
tribes.
version of that map. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over, but I got to say this. Look over here where southern Mexico is. There it is, right there. Southern California, Baja Peninsula right there, right? Way over here is Mexico City. Way down there. Okay, so if you see that map and you look at it and you see Monterrey, bless you. So that obviously doesn't check out. Mexico City is so far down there. It's down below Guadalajara, right? It's to the southeast of it. So, hang on one second. So you see what I'm talking about? That's why it always cracks me up whenever people say, "Oh, I'm Aztec," whatever. You're not even going to be Aztec if you're from El Paso, dude. Like you're not going to have. You will have other types of native because there was a bunch of different tribes in that land, but you're not going to be Aztec. I mean, the odds are very slim. And the Aztecs didn't go much further above where Monterrey is. They would not have. They spread out and then they went back down, and they went further south and they fought with the Mayans, but they didn't go way up north. It just wasn't. There's nothing there for them. So yeah, it's really. Yeah, and then somebody from Southern California, Mexico is claiming to be Mayan too. That's so far-fetched because look at how far away they are. You just said it right there, a little far-fetched, yeah. But you the chances you might have some, but the chances that I even have any Aztec blood are so slim because I'm not from there. I'm not from that region. I mean, it's so far flung. So, this thing that attached to him, that happened to him, it was not native to him. This is not his bloodline. And for years, he was told, well, this could be something that's from our bloodline. And I'm like, yeah, but you bullshit. Because he's also part Lipan. So that's no. Okay. And I confirmed him. He goes, I already kind of knew, I told Guillermo, I said, that's no. That's a no way. That don't even make no sense the way I said it, but that's what I'm saying. No, Tony, Atzland. It's like ZT, whatever, land, whatever. How do you even spell Atzland? I think that's correct, right?
It's AZTLAN.
AZTLAN,
Yeah.
right? Aslan. But it sounds like Aslan, but
Same thing.
But it's crazy because there's all these people that are all this Aztec pride and Aztec this and that. And they don't have a drop of Aztec blood in them. Which really, the Aztecs are a mix of three people. I think it's the Mixtecs, the Zapotecs, and look it up. It's called the Triple Alliance. There were three groups of people. One of them who was already in that region, the other two who had joined, and then they took over and they joined forces. And there were like 3 cities there. And it was Tenochtitlan, and then there was another city that we talked about it the other day on the show. They were completely terrified of it. They wouldn't go anywhere near it. And I'm trying to remember the name of it. No, the Toltecs were before. I think the Toltecs were before that. But I have to find out because this is part of the story. Okay, it's a triple alliance. It was a confederation of Mexico, Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan. Socially, the people were divided into a hierarchical structure of nobles, commoners, and slaves. Religiously, their cosmology was divided into the heavens, the earthly world, and the underworld. So you had these different types of people, but there was I believe they were called the Zapotec.
I mean, I'm coming up with something different. I'm coming up with Mexica, Tepaneca, and Acolhua.
Okay.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is. So the Mexica, the dominant people of the Aztec Empire, they founded the capital of Tenochtitlan in 1325 on an island in Lake Texcoco. From this base in the valley of Mexica, they built a powerful empire through conquests and alliances until they were defeated by the Spanish in 1521. They were known for their military power, blah, 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 blah. But there were three. It says the Spanish ultimately aligned with the Aztec rivals, the Tlaxcalans. We've talked about that on the show. And it says here, time and location. The Zapotecs are one of the earliest complex societies in the Oaxaca region. That would have been further down, Oaxacan region. Okay, so the Zapotecs, that's not, they're further down. It said the Zapotecs and Mixtecs occupied much of the same region. Their histories intertwined over millennia with periods of conflict and intermarriage. The Zapotecs controlled the valley of Oaxaca for centuries, but the city of Monte Alban, it says declined after 700, blah, blah, blah. So that was way before that. So I'm wrong about that. But it says here that the region was called La Mixteca, which spanned parts of Oaxaca, Pueblo, and Guerrero, which would have been further to the west of the Aztecs. But the remnants of these people were all eventually conquered by the Aztecs because they went further down and they conquered the Mayans. And those would have been the direct, the precursor to the Mayans. And I've heard all kinds of different theories and stories about who's who. And that the Mayans go way back to like 2,000 years before, which maybe they do. But that would have ran separate from these people. But then again, with the Mandela effect, a lot of weird things happen. So I don't know. It gets all mixed up. So anyway, it was called the Triple Alliance, and there were three distinct cities, but three distinct people. And there was a city of the giants. There was another one. Let me tell you that one too, because I want to make sure that you.
Yeah, the three cities were Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan.
Yeah.
And they each had three different indigenous groups.
Yeah, Tlacopan, but they each had their own. They were called the Triple Alliance.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you can look up, there's a city, and I'll keep talking, but there was a city where they called it like the Forbidden City, the City of the Giants, City of the Dead, and it was built like by giants. I mean, everything was big. And I've said it before on the show, and I can't remember. I always forget the name of it, but it was right there, close to those three cities, and it could have been another city that they occupied, but they didn't. None of them went there. The Aztecs, Teotihuacan. There you go. Thank you, V. Teotihuacan was and I believe the Toltecs were the people that lived in that region before the Aztecs. But Teotihuacan was not built by the Aztecs. It was built way before that, and they were terrified of it. They wouldn't go there. They said it was a haunted place, and it was haunted by, get this, the ghost of giants. Think about that. They're afraid of it. It's haunted by ghosts of giants. What was that? Like the flood?
Nephilim.
The Nephilim. Yeah, exactly. Ugh. So here we have the breakdown, right? So, anyways, he goes back home to whatever it's called, um, um, where he's from. His grandmother at that time was living across the border in Piedras Negras. It was cheaper, and it was just she could move back and forth freely, so why not? She was very, 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 very disappointed in Sylvia. And so she goes over to Eagle Pass to visit her. And there's always a town here on this side, a town on the border, right across from Rio Grande. They both feed from the river, and the river just happens to divide them, going back to the birth of Texas, right? So that's pretty much how it is. Every border town in Texas has a counterpart. For El Paso, just so you know, for El Paso, the border town across the way, that's called, oh God, just slipped my mind.
Oh, the nasty place.
Yeah, Juarez.
Yeah.
And then for this town, it's Piedras Negras. For Laredo, it's Nuevo Laredo. For Brownsville, it's Matamoros. Like so on and so forth. There's all these towns, and you go to those towns, and then you go across the border, and they're another city, and it's in Mexico. Mexico is basically just it mirrors the cities from Texas, except they tend to be a lot more run down and dangerous. So, bless you. So he ends up going to the doctor when he comes back, and because he wants to play soccer. And the doctor tells him he's perfectly fine. He can find nothing wrong with him. He is healthy. And over time, he stops needing his inhaler. He's like, by the time I was 9, he goes, I had seen a couple of weird things. One time I thought I saw this black snake floating in the air that I'd seen a couple times, once in the park and then once in our garage. But he goes, it wasn't anything that was like alarming to me. He goes, it wasn't like something that I had to, be terrified of. He's like, but I did wake up one time and I had this weird dream that there was this giant cat-like creature that was kind of floating a few feet off of the ground, and it was growling at me. He goes, but there again, he goes, I could contribute that to like a dream. He's like, I didn't have like any like sort of weird like fear. He's like, but I'm pretty sure there was something that would watch me. And I was at my grandmother's house across the border one time, and I was playing with some of the kids in the neighborhood there that I was friends with. And my grandmother was calling me to go eat lunch. He's like, and when I turned around, I looked, there was this black witch-like thing. It was like she was blackish gray, like an ashen black gray. He goes, and she was looking at me through the window. And I was like, what in the heck is that? He said, that was right around the time, he goes, I had just turned 9. He's like, and so a few days after that, this call comes through to my grandmother, and it's this curandera. And she says, you need to come see me. So we get my grandmother's old car, and we drive over there. She's like, we go in and we sit down, and she's out there. There's this smoke, and there's this like really weird looking, like clay, adobe looking little hut like things, the way he described it, with a hole in the top where the smoke was going through. And they go, and there's this woman's like, this is like in her backyard. She's got like this big like property, like a couple of acres, And he's like, we go out there and we talk to this woman. He goes, at this point, he's like, she's just like the other woman in Mexico City. She looks like a freaking mummy. And he goes, and I look at her and I notice she looks a lot like the woman from Mexico City, because that was her older sister. And so she says, mi hermanas, you went to see my sister. She's like, and now I need payment. And she's like, she owed me a favor. She sent something with your son. It's been a year. And per our agreement, and she says, look, my grandma says, look, my abuelita, she's like, I don't have an agreement with you. You had an agreement with my daughter, not with me or with my niece. She's like, and El Niño, the boy, has nothing to do with you. She goes, starts laughing, throws these nasty chicken bones or raccoon bones. He goes, I couldn't tell. There was dead animals everywhere. It stunk everywhere. He's like, this woman laughs and says, no, no, no. She says it in perfect English. She tells me in a language I could understand. She says, you already made the deal. You have to stay here with me for 1 week. 1 week. She's like, and then after that, you're free. Your obligation is free, and I will pull this off of you. Get this. This is what's crazy, man. When he asks what this thing is that he is supposed, this is a 9-year-old kid, right? He says, "What is this thing that I'm supposed to give you?" She says, "Oh, it's sotol." He's like, "What the hell is that?" He goes, "I'm a kid, man. I don't know what this is." She's like, "Oh, it's sotol." She's like, "He is on you." He's like, "I don't know what the hell this woman is talking about." He's like, "This is like something very foreign to me, very alien to me." He's like, "I can tell you exactly what this was." So, if you go back, he goes, and he goes, and if you go back in time, you know, the internet was just starting to be a thing. Because when I was a little kid, it was just starting to come into its own. He goes, "I was born like 1987." He's like, "I don't know anything about this." He's like, "But I'm 9 years old, right?" He's like, "And like I said, the internet was not what it would become. So I didn't have a way to look this up." So he goes, "So when I went to school, I went to the library the next day." He goes, "I was freaked the hell out. And my grandmother was very panicky." So she said, called Sylvia up and said, "We have to do something because this woman is asking for something that is on him, that shouldn't be on him." She says, "Whatever you did, you made a deal with this woman." She's like, "Well, he was going to die." And she's like, "You don't know that." She's like, argued back and forth. "Yeah, I think so." She goes, "No, your friend told you that." And this is what his grandmother said. Your friend that was polluted by demons, that's what she believes, told you that to play on you and mine fear of our child, of him, something happening to him. She says, "Well, he had an asthma attack right there in Mexico City and nearly died." She's like, "Of course he did, because you took him to these witches." But you could debate all day long. Would Guillermo have died? Would he have lived? Was he going to die? Or was this just some kind of fabrication from these demonic ass people? Excuse my language, but yeah. So here's what happened. A hood sodal. And for those who don't know what that is, a hood sodal, right? He was born in Tenochtitlan in 1440, and he died in 1502. Huitzotl was the 8th Aztec ruler. Um, he was the son of a princess. I don't know what else to tell you. But his name, this is interesting. This is not, though, to me, this is not who this this is not who was possessing him or what was on him. Huitzotl was known as the Thorny One. That's what they called him. That was the Thorny One. Do you know why they called him that? Because Huitzotl was not just the name of this leader, this Aztec emperor. It was also, he was named after a water spirit. And the word Huitzotl actually in Aztec means water thorny one. It also can be translated as spiny dog, right?
Sounds familiar.
Yes. Now I will show you something. Look at that right there. Do you see whatever that is? It kind of looks goofy. It looks like a chipmunk with spines all over its back. Do you see the spines on this thing's back right here? You see it? And now look at how it's tethered to this man. And the man, you can see the little blue thing coming out. That's him speaking.
Yeah, right there at the base of his neck, it's tethered to him.
It's tethered to him.
It's like attached. It's an attachment.
It's an attachment.
It's speaking through him.
Speaking through him. When Guillermo told me Huitzotl, I knew already what that was. He started talking to me and telling me, he goes, "I went to the library." I didn't interrupt. I just listened. And Joyce says, "It looks like a squirrel." Yeah, well, it's anything but a squirrel. He said, "This thing," he's like, "was some sort of water spirit demon, but it was also the name of an Aztec emperor." Now, here's the thing. The water spirit demon didn't get its name from the Aztec emperor. The Aztec emperor got his name from the water spirit demon. Why? Probably because it was attached to him. And probably one of these things was attached to him. I'm going to read you this. It says here, the Ahuatzotl is a fearsome mythical water creature from Aztec mythology, described as having a dog-like body with a hand on its tail. Weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sharp claws and a love for human eyes, teeth, and nails. Weird, right?
Yeah.
So here is what he was told. When he went back and he told his grandmother, he goes, that is not something I want to see. He remembers. Remember the snake-like thing he saw in the garage? He was the only one that saw it. His cousin and his cousin's friend were there shooting pool. They had gotten a pool set for Christmas or whatever, and they were playing. And he said it was the day after Christmas. I'll never forget. And this thing came out of my back. He's like, they saw this black thing on my back go into my back, and this black cord or whatever was kind of floating around, had little barbs on it. He goes, I thought it looked kind of like a snake. I just saw it to my right, not realizing that it was attached to my back and that it flipped back into my back. He's like, as I did my research, he's like, I started realizing that this was something that was a monster. This was like something that was attached to me. He goes, and it terrified me. It scared the crap out of me. It says here in this, what is this? AI overview. It says it was a dangerous predator that lured victims to the water's edge with the sound of a crying baby, and its presence served as a cautionary reminder of nature's dangers. It says a small dog-like with a long, slender back, black fur that can clump into spikes and pointed ears. Long, prehensile tail with an extra hand at the end used for snatching prey. Get this. Him and his friends were out playing in the creek one time. He started to drown, and something that looked like a hand pulled black with his long, skinny arm, which it turns out probably wasn't an arm. It was probably the tail of this creature, pulled him up out of the water. Right? They were visiting family, and Del Rio is at Lake Del Rio. Del Rio is another one. Right across from there is Acuna. He's like, and we were playing with some friends of ours from Acuna. He's like, and I almost drowned. Slippery rock, and I went down, and this thing, I guess, pulled me out. He's like, and here's the thing. He's like, sometimes at night, I would hear what sounded like a baby. And our neighbor, literally, she was babysitting, and she came over, and she says, we were outside playing in the backyard. She was a teenager, babysitting little kids. We heard a baby crying. Why would they hear a baby crying? Probably because of this thing, the Huatzotl. The Huatzotl also reminds me of the Cocopelli of the Mayan region, but it's distinctly Aztec. It also reminds me of the Chupacabra, a spiny creature, dog-like, that does what it does. And remember, this thing is an evil thing. It likes to eat human eyes. It likes teeth, and it likes nails. Yeah. So he dreamed one time. He had a dream prior to this. Before he flipped out and figured out what it was. That he woke up and all of his fingernails had been removed, with the exception of the thumbs. He also had a dream that he was missing one of his eyes. His grandmother, determined to put an end to this, literally called up this was not a good idea. Called up the Kunandeta and told her, if you don't take this thing off of him, then something's going to happen. I'm going to pay people to do something to you. This woman started laughing and said, bring the boy to me, and in 1 week, the Huatzotl will be gone. It's mine. I need it. And all the information it has, I need it. My sister owes me. This is the favor. She's like, and then we'll talk about what I want as payment from you. She's like, I'm not giving you anything. She's like, I'll give you the, whatever. So she tells her, she says, you can give me, I don't know why she came up with this number, but she said $5,700 and we'll call it even. And the spirit from that boy. His grandmother says something extremely offensive and says, I'll give you 57 slaps. How about that? She laughs and says, you ignorant woman, you're going to learn. That's why you don't play around with these people. You don't deal with these people. It's magic. It's black. It's not, you're not supposed to mess with those things. So what happens? He becomes sick. Not sick. He goes, but my chest puffed up. He goes, and I was having trouble breathing. It wasn't like he was sick, like he was in the hospital, like he was a fever or anything like that. He goes, it was just like this pressure in my chest. He goes, I felt like something was living inside my body. And I told him, I said, point of fact, it probably was. The Huitzotl, this thing that attaches itself to people, he's like, at one point, he goes, I had a dog. He's like, and I'm not even going to get into what happened to the dog. He watched this thing attack his dog, and the next day he couldn't wake up. He goes, there's one of those dreams where you try to wake up and he's like borderline sleep paralysis, keep going back to sleep. He's like, I wake up and I had this little half poodle mix, and I wake up and the dog is gone. Not disappeared, but deceased. This thing had jumped off of him and had destroyed the animal. This was the day after his grandmother argued, and Sylvia called crying and told her mother, like, how stupid are you to call this bruja and threaten her? She's like, you knew it was this situation was going to happen. The grandmother was very upset. But the grandmother was spiritually gifted herself. She had what we would call the ojo dotado, the gift of the eye, and she could see too. And she said that you were tricked. You were tricked. So she calls up the curandera and she tells her, she says, if I take this boy to you, I will stay there. She's like, you can't stay on my property. She goes, well, then I'll stay on the outside of your property in a car, but I want to see him every day. She says, nope, you cannot be anywhere near my place. Imply you threaten me. I don't trust you. How do I know you're not going to burn me down? She goes, you know that I'm not going to do that. You bruja. Argue back and forth. They negotiate. So she says, okay, bring me another one of the children. And of course, Sylvia's like, absolutely not. You're not taking one of them and then bringing another one. She goes, bring me the younger one. She's like, I could use him. He has the eye too. I want to use it. I want to use it. They love the eyes, don't they? Mm-hmm. Then she said, if you don't do this and you don't give me what I'm asking for, she goes, each one of your children will lose their teeth. One of them will lose their eyes. What a horrible thing to do. She's like, and the other one will lose all of his nails. She's like, because the Huitzotl is going to take from you, not from me. It's going to happen to you. She's like, I can stop this. They don't really have a choice. The next day, he says, the next day, Nathan, my cousin, falls off of his bike and knocks two of his teeth out. Oh. He's like, and then my other cousin gets pink eye, what we thought it was, so bad that his eye was swollen like it was going to pop out of his head. He goes, and then he's like, one of my thumbnails came off. The opposite of the dream. He said it was one day. He goes, this is crazy. He goes, I'm a child now. He's like, I'm just a kid. He's like, and I'm scared to death. And here it is. All this stuff is happening. It's summertime. It's hot as hell down in South Texas. And this woman is saying, come stay with me. So they do. They agree. And so they drop him off with his cousin, and him and his cousin have to be there with this crazy woman, this witch. He said this woman would sit around the fire and she would put dirt into the fire and it would turn green and you would hear screeching and howling and noises. She put her ear up to it and listened to it. He said that she would do weird things like her eyes, like one of her eyes wasn't real and she would pull it out. Ugh, and when they asked her what happened to the other eye, she says she gave it away.
She let the other Stygian witches borrow it.
Really weird stuff. She also said that she was missing her tips of her middle finger on both hands. Never did figure out what that was all about. But she told them, she says, I need your help. So they would sit there and she would give them this drink and they would go to sleep and they would wake up every couple of hours and they would have these weird, vivid dreams. And in these vivid dreams that were like messages, she would scribble down everything that they would tell her. She's like, and they were like, when we told her the dreams, it was in this weird language, which I think was Nahuatl. And they would give her this information from this other realm. Eventually, the fourth day comes, they're almost done. And she says, do you know who I am? Do you know where I'm from? And the boys are like, no. And she's like, I'm an Aztec. She's like, my mother was a witch and she worked for the high priest. She's like, and we have a long, long lineage with this magic. She's like, and my one witch moved out to the west. She lives way out there on the west coast of Mexico. She's like, my other sister, she lives on the east coast. She's like, in the land that was once ruled by the Tabascans. And these are a kid. He doesn't know anything about this. He's never heard of any of this. She's like, and then my other sister, she lived down in the south, the Yucatan, in the land of the Mayans. She goes, and me, I stayed in Mexico City, but then I had a falling out with my sister from the south, and she moved up to Mexico City, and we fought, and I decided to leave and go to the north. Not a hospitable place. She's like, when I came, get this is a crazy story. She tells Guillermo and this other kid, she tells him, when I came, she's like, to this land, she's like, there was a people that ruled this area, and they would come and they would raid and they would destroy everything. She said they rode horses. She's like, and I looked like a teenager. She's like, but I was already 102 years old. This is a story. I don't know if it's true, and I don't know if this woman's being full of crap or what. But like they said, she looked old when her grandmother was a young woman. And she said, I've been here for a long time. She's like, and I've made deals with many different brujas and brujos, people who change into deer, people who fly like eagles or owls. She's like, and I can do anything to any of these people. She's like, my magic comes from the bottom of Lake Texcoco, the Huitzotl, this creature, the Huitzotl. She's like, comes from a time when my grandfather worked for the emperor. She's like, before I was even born, this creature came from the bottom of Lake Texcoco, and it attached itself to a king, a ruler of the Aztecs. And she told them, she said, this creature has many, many forms, and there are multiple creatures like this, and they're all connected. It sounded kind of like a hive mind, like what one knows, the others know. She goes, if you can harness the power of this thing, you can get, just tons of information. She's like, knowledge. Then she went on to talk about a king that lived in the Middle East that once did this, that enslaved all of these beings and got infinite knowledge from them. I think she was talking about Solomon, but I'm not for sure because she didn't say his name. She says, this creature, they all think with one mind, and what one of them has been, the other one has seen it, they all know. She's like, all the dreams that you're having, and it really was just him, not his cousin. She's like, those are the dreams from the dreamland, is what they called it, of the Huitzotl. And these dreams are coming from different parts of the world. And with that knowledge, she goes, I master my magic. She told him the whole thing. She's like, I'm nice. I'm being good. I'm not hurting you or your family, but I could. And she's very, very wicked. And she's telling him, she's like, I am an evil person. She's like, I gave myself a long time ago to Huitzolopochtli. She's like, and I even work for Xolotl. That is the god of the dead. And he goes, at the time, she was naming these deities and all this crap. He goes, I didn't know what this was. I didn't believe in it. He goes, and I thought that it was all just a bunch of bull crap. He's like, but I also knew what was happening. And I was having these dreams and I was speaking in some language that wasn't my native tongue. He's like, and I know damn well, he goes, that there were weird things. He goes, I would look outside this weird little adobe teepee and I would see things crawling around that looked like shadows. And I got to the point where I didn't know whether I was asleep or if I was awake. I would wake up babbling and then go back to sleep. I didn't know. He goes, and all I ate was tortillas and beans and rice. That's it. And this woman says, I come from a time before the Spaniards and I've been alive through all this other crap and all this stuff. How do you know? You don't know. Is she lying? Maybe. But what if she's not? She went on to describe how this mean, angry tribe of natives came from the north and descended on this region where she was at and took bunches of people captives, and including her. They took her to a far, far away land. And she said, at any time I could have put an end to it, but I wanted to see what was going to happen. She's like, and then they told me that I was going to work for them and I was going to wash their clothes and skin these buffalo and do all this and do that. She goes, and I took a piece of antelope horn and I walked over to one of their leaders and I stabbed him right in the heart. She goes, everybody was in shock. She's like, oh, the look on their faces. These mean, evil, nasty people. She's like, and all it took was one good swing and he was gone. She's like, and right before their eyes, that while they stood there stunned, she's like, I took out his heart. I turned into an owl and I flew home. She's like, those were the mean people, the Nurmana. She's like, and I told them, never, ever come back to my town. And they never did. Those people, the Nurm, would have been the Comanches. So this woman is literally saying she was around back then. And he did look like a damn mummy, so who knows? And I asked Guillermo this. I said, Guillermo, do you think she's still alive? He said, I don't know. He goes, I know my cousin Lewis, his daughter had a condition. She had cancer. She was, and she was at the St. Jude. And he's like, and he was saying, I'm tempted to go to this woman to get so that she'll live. He said, there's nothing worth all of that. Every day that he woke up, this is what happened to him. Every day that he woke up, he was missing a tooth. Every day that his cousin woke up, he was missing a fingernail. Every day, he goes, my eye began to swell like it was going to pop out of my head. Because when there is one of these witches that's using this Huitzotl, a lot of this is around Mexico City, but these women, and it's almost always women, they go to different places and they live. From what I know, from what he told me, he says there was one up in Dallas that does this, that uses this evil demon, this spirit, these Huitzotls. And it'll afflict you. It'll bad things will happen to you. She says that this woman says, I have hundreds of children. She said that we were called the spider people. The spider people. She says, when I give birth every 10 years, she goes, I have hundreds of babies. And only a couple of them live. They crawl out of me. This is what she says. They crawl and they spread all over the land. And then they grow into women. She's like, and at least 10 survive every 10 years or so. She's like, but of those 10, about half of them will survive fighting with one another because they'll attack and kill one another. She's like, and what they know, I know. And my knowledge grows and I become stronger. And she laughed. And he goes, and as my teeth are falling out, this is what he told me. I felt terrible for this kid. He's not a kid now, but he was. He said, and my teeth are falling out of my freaking head. He's like, the seventh day comes. My grandmother comes to get me. I go home, the whole left side of my mouth, all my teeth are gone. On the top, on the bottom, on the right side of my teeth are gone. And my cousin has no fingernails, basically, like 3 fingernails left. And he goes, in our eye, we couldn't see out of my right eye, and he couldn't see out of his left eye. He said it was horrible. Per the agreement, on that 7th morning, he wakes up and there's this giant eel-like thing with spines on it that's flipping around inside of a pot. And she's feeding it this green sludge. And she says, soon it'll grow and it'll go and take off to go be with its people. So she gives this creature to his grandmother and says, tomorrow, which would have been the 8th day, take it to the river, the Rio Grande, and release it. The Huitzotl in its physical form. I already have what I need from it. So the question is this, and Guillermo, I asked him this. I said, if this is to be believed that this story is true, it's a horrific thing, a horrific story. If this is the truth, if what he says is the truth and what this woman told him is the truth, if it's to be believed, what is the end result of this woman and what she is doing? And if it's true, that means that there are these beings all over the place doing these things. They spread out and they find hosts. And they use people and they turn them into these vessels for this witchcraft. And like I said, if this is to be believed, he said over the next week, day after day after day, he's like, my teeth grew back in. All except for one. He said, and I think, he's like, just my opinion, but I believe that when I look in the mirror and I see that one tooth missing, that's a reminder that it could happen again. My cousin, his fingernails grew back. Every day he'd wake up and another fingernail would be back. He's like, we tell people what we saw. We tell them the story and nobody believes us. Nobody wants to believe us. He's like, but you'll get the occasional abuelito or abuelita, grandmother or grandfather of his friends.
They understand.
And they'll be like, oh, shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
We came across La Bruja. So, and like I said, if the story is to be believed, who or what is this woman? And was she being honest? Was she telling him the truth? Or was this woman just talking crazy, wild bullshit tales? That's the question, because I myself don't know.
Yeah.
Because witches lie. So you don't know. If this is an evil witch, an evil person, was she telling the truth? Was she bragging? Because that's another thing too. Evil, wicked people love to brag about their evil exploits. They do some of the worst things, and then they want to, act like it's no big deal.
I do notice a pattern with them though, that whenever they make these predictions about like telling people this is going to happen to you, that's going to happen to you, it's always bad stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not always, but most of the time, the overwhelming majority of the time, these predictions are always that something's bad is going to happen. And I think most of that is just like, it's just manipulation. I mean, these people lie to achieve their own ends. That's the whole point of why they do what they do. The witchcraft is it's a very selfish thing, really. It's just to get what you want in this world. It's kind of like finding like cheat codes, to serve yourself. And instead of serving something higher than yourself, you conjure up these spiritual beings to do your bidding, which is just backwards. So of course there's a price to pay.
Mm-hmm. So before we run, what the heck?
What?
Got some kind of weird message on the screen and I can't get it off here.
Let me see.
Oh, it was weird. So I'd never seen that before. There was this weird message, bless you, weird message that came on the screen. It was just like telling me to confirm something, energy saving something, I don't know. So anyways, here's the thing. Before this show tonight, and I had this one planned for 2 weeks, a million things happened that made this show almost not happen. Kind of like something didn't want the information being put out there. So we end up having the weird thing with the we couldn't get the resolution to work, couldn't get the computer to work, nothing. It didn't want to play ball. It was like not letting us on. We had to restart the stream 3 times. Then I had to address these maniacs that were doing and saying what they've been doing and saying, and accusing us of, you know, we're going to do some ritual sacrifice or something on Halloween because they're sick in their minds, and this whatever. Which I like to think that, you know, it's proof that we expose these evil beings and their nefarious activities. I think that people that are saying these kind of things probably are doing something themselves. I can't prove any of that, but why would you always be trying to accuse somebody of it unless it's something that you're doing? So that's all I got to say. But if anybody has any questions about this, and there might be something that I forgot. Now, here's the thing, and I have to admit this, and I hate this, but I really screwed up. Now, last week, I called him Grant on the show. And there was a friend of his, Raymond or Ramon, and they messaged me. Well, Grant did, and he said, "Hey, Raymond wanted me to reach out to you." This was last Wednesday's episode, and it was about a vampiric entity that came back from Iraq with this soldiers. One of the things that I was told was that I left a very crucial piece out of that show. So sometimes when you have a lot going on like we did tonight, you can ask questions. It might help me to remember some of the pieces here because I use very minimal notes on here on my phone. I don't use a big old thing, whatever. Most of it's from memory. Not all of it, but most of it. And so I messed up Wednesday, and I'm a man enough to admit it. And these guys were like, "Hey, it's no big deal. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to, but I want to." But one of the things that happened to Raymond was when he came back home, he had something that was on his back. And when he was in the bathroom, rinsing his mouth out, there was all this blood that came out of his mouth. And he looks up, and there's this thing like this black head looking creature with pointy ears. That had like the head almost the size of like a man, but the body, when he turned, he looked, and he had this mirror on the medicine cabinet. You could see the mirror. The body just had these little stunted like legs with like this big back and these weird spindly arms. And it was biting his neck. And it actually drew blood. And he actually had wounds on his neck that eventually went away. But that was one of the things that made me think it was vampiric. And then another time, he was slammed up against the wall in the bathroom, and this thing was literally putting its head underneath his chin. So, yeah. That's Chris Garitano, man, right there. What's up, Chris? How you doing? So this creature was definitely vampiric, but I left out crucial details, and that was a mistake I made last Wednesday, and I apologize for those two. There was another thing too, but it didn't have anything to do with the vampiric element of it, you know. But that was crucial, and I did screw up on that one. So at least I'm admitting it. I'm not trying to say it was right for me to screw it up. Apologies to Ramon and to we'll call him G, but I apologize. You know, I screwed that up. But you're still working on your project there, Chris? If anybody wants to ask a question or whatever about tonight's episode, just feel free, and I will try to oblige. So, when can we expect a haunting we will go to come out, Chris? I've been eagerly awaiting for that. I think so. I mean, I didn't ask that question specifically from Guillermo. I didn't say, "Hey, did your aunt and your grandma learn your did your cousin learn your," you know? I didn't ask that. Uh, give Chris a wrench just so he has it if he ever needs it. and throw the link out there. Chris, if you want to jump on for a minute here, you can. Got a little bit of time. Talk about what you got going on. He can jump on if he wants. Tomorrow night, folks, we'll be doing things in a timely manner, and probably, we'll be able to get started earlier than we did today. We got started earlier today, but we had a bunch of stuff happen because of these people that just keep on. They don't stop. They think if they just make enough noise and cause enough problems, that eventually something bad's going to happen to me. Well, that's your wishful thinking. I tie, bind, and rebuke all of the things that they do and say in the name of Christ. So I don't put anything into these people. But there's the link right there if you want to jump on. And honestly, part of the reason why things happened the way they did tonight was probably because of the message. We were trying to get this story out. And Guillermo told me, he was like, one of the things he said was that whenever he tries to talk about this, like he was scheduled to go on a guy's show to talk about this. And that guy could not get the show going. That's happened to him twice. So I told him, and see, I can feel like my voice is trying to go out. That's weird too, because it was fine earlier. But he said, maybe you can tell it. But after he told it to me, I had two weird things happen to me. One, I had a horrible, which I told you about, and I told Nellie, I had a horrible nightmare. But for some reason, something told me not to say that it was about this. But it was about this. I do believe that's what it was partly about. The night of that nightmare, it was just a normal. Nellie had gone to bed. She was really tired. I stayed up watching television, and I was watching this weird show on TV, and it was about these. I don't know what it was. Something in the Middle East. I forgot what it was called. It was about the Shadim, and I went to bed with that on. But when I woke up from the dream, it was playing this like music, like this harmonious music or whatever. So I don't think that's what did it. And the dream was weird. It was like the dream was like I was walking through this weird, like, I don't know if it was like a temple or what. And it was this horrible smell. And there was like this black wall. And I was trying to break down the wall. Anyway, I talked about it to Nellie and to Anthony. And it was like the wall was a living mass of blackness. And it was right after I had talked to this guy the second time. Bless you. And now Anthony's just got attacked with allergies.
Yeah.
So anyways, Chris, if you want to jump on, let me know. And the link is there.
Some people in the comments are saying that they heard something in the background earlier. That I don't know for sure, but that might have been me. I had to step out like probably 6 or 7 times now just to blow my nose.
Yeah, but not right now.
No, it was like probably maybe 10 minutes ago that people started commenting saying, "Hey,
yeah,
what's that in the
I started
background?"
noticing people commenting on that, but you were sitting over here when it happened. So maybe it's you sneezing or something. I don't know. Yeah, and I don't know what was happening earlier. There's Kevin Murphy. What's going on, Kevin? How you doing?
Hey, man. How are you tonight?
I'm all right, man. I could be better, but earlier we had to start the stream 3 times, and then I had to say what I had to say. There was an hour-long rant because people are trying to get me killed. Get really sick of it.
I got here late.
Yeah. Crying or moaning in the background.
Well, if it's
See?
something like that, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
They said it went on for like 30 seconds. I mean, I wasn't blowing my nose for 30 seconds straight.
That's why I said when I first saw people saying that, you were just sitting right there, and you had been for a while. So I don't think that's a good. I don't think that's a plausible explanation.
No.
I don't know. Sage cooling. Oh my gosh. No, mommy, no, Christian. Yeah, sure. I don't know how people can that's so ridiculous. So what do you think of this? Did you hear the story tonight, Casey? You
I
know,
literally just got on a few minutes ago. I'm sorry to say.
oh man. So you have to go back and listen, dude. Check it out.
I always love whenever you share stories from Mexico and any of the area in that Central American cultural mix. It's always fascinating and resplendent with so much mythological lore and yeah, it always just resonates powerfully with me.
Yeah, and yeah, tonight's show, it almost didn't happen.
Well, what happened, man?
Well, the internet, like it wasn't the internet. We were having problems with we could download, but we couldn't. Was it the
Our upload speed
Upload.
was like really slow,
really bad?
and so like our first 2, maybe 3 live streams, it was all pixelated.
So
I'm
Tried
surprised
call-
it doesn't happen more regularly with what you're doing, with the content that you've been bringing for so long. I mean, I'm amazed that you don't deal with these shenanigans on a nightly basis.
yeah.
When I'm grateful that you don't, but I'm sorry. I know it must wear on you guys a lot because you're taking on a lot, man. I mean, I don't need to tell you. Whenever you tell the truth, whenever you try and disseminate real information to people, you're rolling the dice in more ways than one.
Yeah. Well, and at one point we had almost 400 people ready to go, and we were already like an hour and a half late. And then, so we ended up when we finally redid the stream. I had, to talk about what was being said about me because these people obviously are not happy with just me living. So, yeah, so I had to stop that because who wants to hear an hour of that? You want to hear the show. So we have 2-hour-long show to do. And so here we are. What's going on, Steve and Chris? How you guys?
Hey, Josh, good to be here. Thank you. I've been here for most of the show.
Yeah.
So you're just catching your rhythm now, huh? Sorry, buddy. Sorry.
I'm almost done here.
Oh.
I got to drive I got to drive 2 towns over when I get done, man, for work. I got to go do some stuff. But it's not so bad. I got things I got to do. Chris, how are things going with you? You got the show coming out or?
Can't hear you.
Chris, are you there? Can you hear me?
He's having his own technical
Yeah, he's probably
difficulties.
having his own technical difficulties. But Garetano is a good friend of mine. He was at the conference, and he's working. If you don't know who he is, he's done Montauk Chronicles, Dark Files, and he had a
Strange
show
World.
called Strange World. Well, he bounced. I don't know what happened. He'll come back.
Yeah,
I have a question about what you talked about tonight. These brujas that make women, how long do these women live? Do they go through the same lifespan as us, or are they sped up? And can we tell the difference between them, or do they just like disappear and go back into the Borg of the bruja?
I don't know, and that's weird that this this Huitzotl creature is something that they were looking that they look for because these creatures are like a hive mind. Apparently, they have like a hive mind, and they can give knowledge or information that they can all share.
Get some feedback now.
Yeah, again, we're getting some feedback from you, Chris.
Wow.
Oh, you're getting some noise?
Yeah.
Echo. Getting echo.
Boy. All right. What should we do here?
That's a good microphone. I think I still have one like that, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
set
that's a
up in
Blue
the
Yeti.
room,
Yeah.
It's actually
You
Sam.
got some headphones, Chris?
Yeah, I could get the headphones. I'll be right back, folks.
Right.
I'm just here.
So, Steve, in answer to your question, I don't know. I can't tell you. I just know that there are a lot of stories about witches that use this type of formula. And they like to use children because children have the eye and they can see better, into the other realm. And these things attach easier to children because their pineal third eye, whatever, the pineal gland, whatever, it's not calcified yet. Yeah. So they attach to children, and children, they'll come unattached, and there's another story that I'm going to be doing pretty soon. And there was a woman that gave us a story, and I honestly can't say too much because I don't know if I have permission to use her story yet or not. I think I will be able to. But she was talking about how they lived in a haunted house. But the more she talked about it to us, about what the phenomena was, I'm not sure that it was a haunted house. I think her daughter, or one of her daughters, was haunted. And I think it was an attachment to that daughter, her younger daughter. And I think that thing was coming off of her daughter and then moving around, and the daughter was seeing it as a little playmate until one day she saw it on the wall sitting in the corner like a spider.
Wow.
And it was something that her oldest, well, no, not her oldest daughter, her babysitter saw. Like it looked like a black mass with legs, like a blob, like a spider blob thing on her back while she was asleep. And when she went toward it, it kind of slid off her back and then crawled under the bed. And so she thought, oh, this is like a giant tarantula or something. She's scared. She goes and she calls her friend, who's just a teenager like her, and she comes over and they start looking around for it and they don't see it. Then a couple days later, her boyfriend, the mother's boyfriend, was there, and he saw something that looked like a black mass, kind of like a spider moving up and down. Didn't do anything, but just the fact that thing was probably attached to the daughter, it was very spider-like. I think it was like an attachment, myself personally. I don't think that the house was haunted. I think that's where all the activity was coming from, was from that. And a lot of times people will think, well, my house is haunted. But no, you're haunted because you have an attachment and you see it moving around and you think that the house is haunted, but it's you. You know what I mean? So.
Is that always the case? That somebody has an attachment and that's why they see things happen?
No.
Okay.
No. I've actually been in places where there is just a haunting. There are ghosts and there may be demons too. And they just are there. Now, a lot of times demons are there and they're tolerating the ghost because they're getting energy from that soul. It's an unfortunate parasitic relationship. It's pretty one-sided. But also a demonic entity, if you die with that attachment on you, or God forbid, you take your own life, those things can take you and hold you hostage for a long time. Or you could be taken into the abyss, or a pocket abyss, a pocket realm, where you were used as a battery. Because these things don't have a lot of energy on their own. Yeah. They need energy. That's why they look like a flame or like a plasma. And a lot of times, my theories on this, and I've been thinking about this. We were talking about it last night, Anthony, and we were talking about Nellie, just pondering the paranormal and talking about what I think these things are and giving my theories. I think that these things, like when it says that the jinn are made of smokeless flame, that's a plasma. I think that's why people see ectoplasma from hauntings. They leave it behind as a residue, like a jelly.
Yeah.
And I think that when
smoke.
there's like a smoke, but it's a smokeless flame. So when you see the smoke, that's that's who they are.
Remember when I told you about coming back from the restaurant when Meredith had been, she had been going in session every night in our room. And when we came back from dinner one night after weeks of this, we thought that there was so much ectoplasm in the room. We thought that it was on fire. We thought the smoke, was, or with ectoplasm rather, was smoke. But and I'd never seen it like that, and I'd never seen it come out of her mouth or out of her fingertips. Even though we were doing that session pretty much every night, I never saw that happen like I've heard about, read about with mediums. But there's no question we came back from dinner that night. I mean, I called the fire department. It was only after great convincing that they, that they didn't come out there, because I was so convinced that that we were definitely having a fire. Yeah, the whole place you couldn't even see. Yeah, and then as the time elapsed, once we came through the door, I could see it evaporating, literally going out like smoke without our sliding door. But that was that's the first and the only time I'd seen ectoplasm like that. That was incredible. But so was everything else of that woman. Sorry, I didn't mean to hijack.
No, that's fine. I saw something that looked like pink slime, and it was at a haunting. And I say a haunting because it didn't start out that way. It started out, we went out there to talk to some people about a dog man, well, not a werewolf, whatever it was, that their child, a 6-year-old child, was seeing.
Wow.
And then that ended up being part of what was, what's crazy too, like these entities, I think when they use energy, that's what makes them glow brighter and stronger, and they can move around better. I think that they can end up just as a wisp, or like a black shade, not even a full shadow. And just kind of floats around, and then they latch on and they drain energy, and then they get the ability to become something else. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I don't know for sure, and I can't tell you what this thing with this Bruja was or is. That's what this guy was told by this entity. But then, like I said too, you got to remember these things lie, and self-aggrandizement is probably a very big part of their, But it is weird that she was very old. Even when his grandmother was young, she looked like she was 60.
Yeah, I heard you mentioning that she was claiming heritage from before the Aztecs.
No, not before. It was during.
Or during. Well, that's old enough.
Yeah, that's 500 years old enough. Yeah.
And you thought your mother-in-law was old.
If you look at what she, if his grandmother was in her teens when she was taken to her, this woman looked like she was in her 60s. So that would put her at like, at least 40, let's say 65. That would put her, let's just say here, because she was 16, but do we say 15 would be, 50 years.
Right.
Her grandmother is, his grandmother's in her 80s. His one would be like 130, 140 by this point. So, and supposedly she's still alive. So how long do these beings live? Very long time. It's an unnatural life. That in of itself too is a vampiric type of thing. One of the things they said that they saw her do too was drinking this liquid all the time, which they thought was wine, but now they think it might have been blood. So was she a vampire? What we think of and know as vampires. That's why the vampire book is so important, because I keep having to like revise, because I think that the vampire thing is a very integral part of all of this. And I think it's a lot more prevalent than we thought it was, because we know now that most of these entities have a vampiric element to them.
Yeah, relationship of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I never really would have believed that, until I started watching the show more often, because Dogmen and Werewolves, that was something shape-shifting, for a lot of reasons. It was something that was a lot easier for me to take in. And me, I mean, if there's anyone that's been open for, from an early age, but vampires, I mean, that was really a hard one for me to wrap my head around. But at the risk of sounding cliche, as we always say, if this is real, what else is real,
Mm-hmm.
And we're living in an age where I literally, at the risk of sounding redundant, it feels like someone literally took Pandora's box and not only opened it, but shook it upside down. I mean, it's just the world we're in right now, the universe we're in, with dimensions being crossed and time travel, and all the cryptid things, all the stories and mythology coming to life around us, as we speak and breathe. It's just incredible. And it's like something, and I think one of the first times I really started watching the show regularly, I think Chris was on, and I remember him saying something effective. This wasn't going on like this years ago. This is really the way, and I think he was right in that it's been really ratcheted up in the last decade. It's certainly in the last 5 years. But it's just my take on things. And
Well, I think we have to redefine what we believe is a vampire. I think we have to look at it like there is a lot more going on here than what we once thought. So, but guys, I got to run. Thank you for jumping on, guys.
okay.
And tomorrow night, remember, and Steve, if you want to come back tomorrow night and talk, KC, talk tomorrow.
Sure.
Tomorrow is Monday, and I'll try to get an early start, and we'll just do the show. I always like Mondays because it's pretty relaxed, and we can just do talk.
What's early?
I'll be on about 8 o'clock, probably.
Okay, so 6 my time.
Perfect.
Very good. Good night, man. Great show.
Good night,
Thank you, man. Thank everybody.
Yeah,
Good
and
night.
I'll see you.
See you tomorrow.
Yes,
Right.
thank you, Josh.
So, and Chris, if you're listening, Garitano, hit me up, man. We'll talk on the phone. We can talk. I got some stuff to do tonight, but if you want to talk, we can talk and whatever. You're one of my old friends, so for sure. But bless you. We got to get going here, folks. I got to go. Like I said, I got work to do, and I got a job in a neighboring town I got to go deal with. I'm going to listen and see if I can hear that EVP. Exactly. Never giving into your blood. The blood gives them a direct link to your life force and soul. Yes, they feed on it. Yes, they can turn it and transfer power back at you or to you at a steep price. Exactly. All right, guys. And you know what's crazy about this is people will go to these healers, these brujas, these witches or whatever, when they have the power themselves. And you have the power through Christ to do all of this yourself. You don't need all of that, but people do it. They lack the faith. And so they believe that they need some kind of outside source. All you need is yourself, the power that God gave you through Christ and the Holy Spirit. I'll see you guys. Good night.
Bleak December, Edgar's raving, nevermore. Came a rap and a gentle tapping, the ghosts of embers lying on the floor. Wishing for tomorrow, my sweet Lenore, nameless there forevermore. The silk and purple curtains drew out my fear like terror I never felt before. Brought back to my wonder, who could be at my door? Is it a man or a woman I implore? A darkness there and nothing more. Out like a light that night, a rapping came tapping at my door. Is this the end? Forevermore. Into the darkness I gazed, stood fear and doubt, a nightmare it seems, but only a dream. The stillness and silence unbroken, till I whispered Lenore. gaze upon its beauty, but the grave it wore. I beckoned thee from the chamber door, spoke the raven, nevermore. My gaze upon the raven, the word it spoke meant nothing, even the word was a bore. For this bird